Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the One Hub Racing YouTube channel. Now it is the turn of a Pinnacle tier to take centre stage for round 9 around the Silverstone circuit, the scene of the first ever Formula 1 race back in 1950, and tonight it plays host to the final round of a Pinnacle tier for season 16. My name is Jake, and as always I'm joined by Austin. How are you doing this evening?
I'm doing good, Jake. How are you doing?
I'm very good, thank you. Now, to briefly mention the reasons as to why tonight's British Grand Prix is the final round, and this of course means the postponed Australian Grand Prix from last week will not be rescheduled. Unfortunately, to sum it up in as few words as possible, we've seen far too much driver movement, with 11 Pinnacle tier drivers leaving, and attendances have suffered as a result. So One Hub had to make a difficult decision to end the tier tonight, with the other 3 tiers going on to Hanoi next week. This is a problem, don't worry, but One Hub will be working massively hard to ensure does not happen next season. And to quickly come on to something else that's happening tonight, we're also going to be saying a sad farewell to BDG Louis, who has now clinched his 3rd One Hub title with a very dominant season, but he will be departing One Hub after tonight's race. His One Hub records speak for themselves. He has 29 pole positions, 40 podiums and 25 wins, and he really has been the benchmark for all the other drivers in recent seasons. What he does not know, although he might have got a little inkling a few minutes ago, is that we'll be holding a special tribute for him tonight, where in a quick practice session all drivers will be expected to leave the pits and complete a slow lap and then retire when they cross the line, as tribute to him in his final race. Now, Austin, you've witnessed so many of Louis' wins here at One Hub. What memories have you got of his time here?
I mean, it's really a memory of just him being dominant. I mean, you look at all the stats, you look at it, no one has more wins, no active driver at least. I don't know if there is maybe someone way back when who's got more than 25 wins in One Hub history, but I don't think you'll find anyone. 40 podiums, 29 pole positions. Fun fact, no active driver has more than 10. So that speaks for itself. He is one of only a very few number of drivers, in fact 3, to have hit the 800 points mark. And he's also been driver of the day more than anyone among the active drivers, with 12 times. So he's really been absolutely superlative in his whole One Hub racing career, and he is, and I think will forever remain as one of the One Hub all-time greats.
Very well said, and hopefully he can end tonight on a high. Obviously he's already got the title wrapped up, but he'll be looking to end things on a high at his home race, and we'll have this little tribute for him now in the practice session, which he may have slightly caught on earlier on. We tried to keep it a surprise from him, but unfortunately you cannot hide the fact there's a practice session on the game. Last time out, we are going back 2 weeks ago now, due to the postponed Australian Grand Prix. We raced at the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve, as Louis, speak of the devil, took his 4th win of the season with a commanding performance. Lakitu kept up his great form with a solid 2nd, while Samster claimed 3rd place. Obviously it's a bit of a unique one tonight. Obviously we've got Silverstone as a finale. How do you think the drivers will approach this final race?
I think it's not going to be all too intense. I think a lot of drivers haven't done a lot of practice. It's really just a last sort of showcase. It's just a fun little event, fun little race, really. The championship is decided. 2nd place in the championship is still kind of up for grabs between Lakitu and Gil, with an outsider chance for Samster and Larkin. But I don't think that they're going to battle too hard over this. If there are any changes in the Drivers' Championship, it would, apart from, again, that 2nd place between Lakitu and Gil, it would very surprise me. And then sort of 9th or 8th place down, maybe 6th place down, as Josh, Zach and Compassion all not here tonight. Konzo in P9 is, and he could get all of them if he just scores a 4th place. So that could happen. Or sorry, he needs a 4th place with the fastest lap, apologies. Yeah, it's mostly just gonna be, you know, we have these nice honorary laps or this honorary lap for Louis, at the end of which everyone will retire, and it's just gonna be a nice little race around a track that many drivers do like. I say many drivers, and I emphasize that because I'm not a driver, and I personally do not like this track, but a lot of drivers do. Oh my goodness, we have a 5 place grid penalty. Oh no. This is supposed to be an honorary lap and people collide.
Credit to everyone. Everyone's out on the track, with the exception of Gil, and of course Louis, who probably hasn't got a clue what's going on in part, but he might have some sort of an idea now. It's a real shame for Samster. It's not the start he would have wanted. And you can see here all the cars bunching up on the straight. This is a nice thing to see. All the drivers in a line, coming up to what was the old first corner around here, of course. And yeah, this is something nice to see, and it's a really nice tribute to someone who I think in years to come will still be remembered as one of the true greats of One Hub.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, this is all the sportsmanship you like to see. One lap of honor for Louis and his last race in One Hub, and from what I've heard, sort of intel sources tell me that it is also the last race for Louis with the racing line on. So from this point onwards, for Louis, it will mean no more visual assist on the track, as some drivers I think have already gone into the pits. Samson, Lakitu, some actually go for another lap, for a flying lap here it seems, or oh no, they're just retiring on track. I see. So yeah, Louis meanwhile is on an out lap.
Might be completely oblivious as to what's happening. We kept a surprise from him.
Yeah, and he's actually going fast. He's weaving. Oh, that is fantastic. So he's taking this lap as well now, showing on the soft tires as well, showing himself out of the pit lane at least, as everyone has retired now, and Louis in his last race, the dominator of basically the moment he joined, really. The moment he joined One Hub, he was dominating every single time. Remember, he also had a couple different names here in One Hub. He started out as VSR Louis, was then for some point ILRT Louis, until BDG then picked him up, and then he was of course BDG Louis. So many different names, but the driver has remained the same and has remained as dominant as ever, as he now takes the final couple of corners. And I would assume he retires then as well. Although I would put it past. No, he stops. He stops. And and there you go, celebratory donuts. Fantastic.
Love the showmanship. That's fantastic stuff. And that worked out pretty well, all things considered. And yeah, Louis now retires from the session, and that's going to be a tribute to Louis, and who knows, he might give himself his own tribute by signing off with yet another victory. I certainly wouldn't put it past him, that's for sure. So of course now we'll be going into the qualifying session. I do want to quickly touch on the Drivers' Championship. Obviously we know Louis is well and truly sealed the championship. But we have actually got a very interesting battle between Lakitu and Gil for second, with just 2 points separating them, with Samster not too far behind in fourth. Who would you predict winning that battle for second tonight? Obviously we've got all the drivers in the equation here, so it's a fair fight in that regard.
Yeah, looking at the situation between the two, I would say Gil, even though he's 2 points down, is the favorite, because it really is basically they're tied, and whoever finishes ahead of the other wins second place. Because even though Gil is 2 points down, he has the tiebreaker because he actually won round 6 around the United States Grand Prix, whereas Lakitu has not won a race. He's had 2 second places, but he hasn't won. So the tiebreaker is in Gil's favor, and that means that he just needs to equal Lakitu on points, and he does that because of the point system, you get 2 points more than the guy behind you for every position inside the top 8. And I would expect both drivers, unless they retire, which obviously we don't hope for, but unless they retire, they do have a 2-point gap between each other. So Gil just needs to finish ahead of Lakitu, and he does get second place. So I would expect Gil to take this. I think he is the slightly faster driver. He has had the win. He has had more podiums this season. Lakitu was more consistent, but Gil, I think he's got that punch. He's got more outright pace, and so I would just give him a slight edge over the German driver.
And it's funny you mention that, actually, because Lakitu himself was invited to the driver's press conference yesterday, as it was, of course, the One Hub Racing Media Day, and was actually asked about how important it would be for him to steal second in the championship, and he very much played down his chances, going along with what you're saying, really, and suggesting that Gil is a quicker driver than him, and saying he would just be happy just to finish in the top 3, and that he doesn't think staying in second is a realistic possibility. Obviously, what would you make of those comments? Are you a little bit surprised he's playing down his chances?
Not really. I think at this point it's very clear that Gil does have more outright pace, and what kept Lakitu in this fight over second is his consistency. In another league, which I won't really mention, but both drivers, Gil and Lakitu, and Louis as well, are driving in that league, and that league has 11 tiers, not 4 like we have, so it's a bigger league. But you see that because there are so many drivers in there, what has happened is Gil is the championship leader right now of their top tier. Lakitu is in 7th in their second tier. So that's the gap outside of One Hub between those two. Where you have one driver just being, basically, I would argue, Gil, I think you can say he's at the top of league racing. And then you have Lakitu, who is in, I don't know if you can say in the championship battle, but certainly in a high position battle over there. But he's not, he's not in the top tier, he's in the second tier, which is still very fast, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying Lakitu has no pace. He is certainly a very quick driver, and certainly much quicker than I am. I can very much attest to that. But, there is a difference between the two, and that's something that Lakitu is aware of. And I think most drivers are aware of who's faster than them, who's slower than them, who are they evenly matched with. And so, for Lakitu, I'm not surprised, and I would second his assessment. Yeah,
and I think as well for Lakitu it's been a brilliant season regardless. I mean, he's only had the 2 podiums, which I think just demonstrates how consistent he's been towards the sharp end of the field to be in second place in the championship, and he'll be looking to end on a high tonight, as will all the drivers. Quickly coming on to our venue for tonight, with course racing at the Silverstone circuit, a track that many consider to be the spiritual home of Formula One. The home track for many of our teams and drivers, this fast-flowing track will pose a serious test to the Pinnacle of One Hub tonight, with 18 turns making up this 3.66 mile circuit, and the lap record was actually set this year by Max Verstappen at 127.0. I wanted to ask you, actually, what extra pressure do you think it places on the drivers when it is their home race, like it is for many of the drivers here tonight?
I think it doesn't really put that much pressure on them. I think what it does is it unlocks sort of a little bit more pace in them, because this is the place where you're expected to do well, and you better make sure, you'd like to make sure, as we have, I think, Samster spun on the exit of Luffield there. Yep, and I think that's front wing damage as well. Yeah, left side completely gone almost. Only the base of the front wing still on that car. But yeah, I think it unlocks some pace. It's not so much pressure, because they generally, most drivers, not all of them, but most drivers make sure that for their home race they try and practice more. They actually put in the work, they put in the hours, Whereas, you know, for any other race they treat like it's quite literally any other race. But your home race, you're always coming to it. And I remember that from the days when I was racing, you know, way back when. Obviously, in my age, you know, I can't do that anymore. You know, I might get a heart attack from someone crashing in front of me or whatever. But no, for German Grand Prix, or for any German track, I've always practiced more than any other track. Usually, my practice time back in the day was that I usually took around, like every week, probably 4 hours of practice on a track. When it came to the German Grand Prix, it was more like 7-8 hours that I took to really perfect every single corner and make sure that, you know, it's all going well, and I know all the ins and outs of the track and then some.
Just on board here with Konzo at the moment, so we have got Louis out on his outlap. It was interesting actually, Williams were one of the teams called up to the team's press conference and were actually asked about the fact they're looking good to secure the Constructors title in Pinnacle, and they can't even remember what that feels like, and they responded with, well, we only won it last season, so we do know how to party. But also on a touching note, it's been a good season and they will miss Louis. He's a great driver and he'll be a big miss in the future. And of course as well, considering Williams really, the vast majority of their points this season have come from Louis. Cliffy, he'll himself admit, hasn't contributed maybe as much as he would have liked, only the 19 points. Most of that coming in his one podium at Monaco. But it shows Louis, with practically, I would say, holding the team up almost, has managed to propel Williams to the top.
Yeah, and I mean, right now the situation is that they are 42 points ahead of Red Bull and Haas, who are tied for second right now. So this could get interesting. There are no prizes on the line for second and third in the Constructors, but it's still bragging rights on the line. And so with those two teams being tied right now, that also plays into the whole Lakitu versus Gil battle. And it's also, I think it's going to come down to where will Netsky end up. We've seen the promise that he has shown, that he had a 6th place 2 weeks ago, and then a 10th place at his debut, so 2 points finishes in his first 2 races in 1-up. In the top tier, it's something not many people can say about themselves, so Netsky could be on for some good points, at which point it doesn't really matter. Lakitu can take second in the drivers, but Haas will end up still third in the Constructors because his teammate IGK Zach isn't here. He's at Spa right now, Spa-Francorchamps, not the Spa where, you know, wellness and everything. No, Spa-Francorchamps, where he's racing in the French Air 4. So Lakitu has to do it all by himself, and right now is looking very bad for him as Gil takes P1 and Netsky takes P2. So provisional front row lockout for Red Bull.
That's exactly what they needed. It's good, like I say, with just Lakitu here for Haas tonight, it's going to be so tough for them to get that second spot, and Red Bull have set out a clear statement of intent there, with Gil taking pole narrowly ahead of Netsky, who's been a massively promising driver in these last few races. Certainly looking ahead to next season, he could be a real threat. There's no doubt about that. Louis, unfortunately for him, did invalidate his first lap just before the hangar straight. He ran a bit too wide. It looks like he was on a pretty good lap at the moment, up to that point. Looking at the order at the moment there, we've got Gil, Netsky first and second, Lakitu third, Chapelele with a nice lap in fourth. All very, very close between the top 6. And
yeah, I think that's the sort of pace that you would expect from those drivers, just being so close together. Netsky, I have to say, it's a bit surprising to see him that high up. And I would say the same with Larkin. He's only 3/10 away from IGK Gil. That was a very solid lap from Larkin, I think, with everyone else then being basically a second down. Konzo, Glock, Knowlesy, Dan. Dan on the mediums, and Cliffy has retired already. Did he crash somewhere?
And he retired in the pit lane by the looks of it. Chapelele has just split the Red Bulls at the top. And Dan Murphy's been disqualified from the session.
Oh.
For going the wrong way. That's quite bizarre.
Yeah.
So that's the end of his qualifying and also the end of Cliffy's. But very nice lap there from Chapelele. We didn't really see much pace from him last time out at Canada, but he's looking bang on the money so far.
Yeah, having seen him before, having seen him race before, he does have the pace. The one thing he struggles with, I think, is consistency and, to some extent, I don't want to say racecraft in general. I think it's staying out of trouble in the first couple of laps. He's like a magnet for that sort of thing, where, you know, he does collide with someone, and you can't really put blame on him or the other driver. It is a racing incident, but at the same time, maybe it is smarter to live to fight another day and try and keep yourself out of these troubles, out of these fights this early on, and just, yeah, as I say, live to fight another day. So Chapelele, we'll see if he learns. That's been his issue for a long time. Maybe today it works out in his favor. Then again, turn one, looking at that, it can get very, very narrow. As wide as the track is, it can get very narrow on the first lap, and definitely after that, because on lap one, at the start, turn one, they don't have that much speed as they have after the first lap when they come through turn one again. So, you know, it's going to be tricky, but if Chapelele can qualify near the front, he has a good chance of bringing home a very, very good result and his first points in One Hub.
Just want to say as well, Vonetsky's a relative unknown still in One Hub. He has a lot of support in the stream, I have to say. He's clearly got a lot of supporters out there, and they'll be pretty happy with what he's shown so far, I must say. Just quickly as well, mention our sponsors for tonight. One of our sponsors is Liam13, former Prospect Tier driver. He is sponsoring the trophies this year, and if you do want to check him out, you can do so on Twitch. It's twitch.tv/Liam13.
Yes, indeed, and our other sponsors, of course, Next Level Racing, who will provide a wheel stand to the winner of the Going Gets Tough award, which will be awarded to a driver who has participated and finished every single race, as well as participated in every single media day activity they were called upon for, or in case of the pre-race interviews, everyone's called upon for that. So it's to honor those drivers who maybe aren't necessarily at the front, you know, who aren't necessarily fighting for the championships, you know, because Louis at this point, he probably already has two wheel stands sitting right next to each other, and he can just switch between one and the other. So he doesn't need any more. But, you know, for some of the drivers who've been here for a long time, who've been very supportive of OneUp, who've been a part of the community for a long time, for those drivers is the Going Gets Tough award.
Yeah, it's at One Hub here. We do value all the drivers, no matter what your pace is. You're all welcome here, and if you do want to sign up, you can do so at oneupracing.com, as Gil has the most bizarre spin I think I've ever seen on an outlap. As I think he tried to get some temperature in his tyres and just lost focus. I don't know where he's going now. He's just on the Hanger Straight. Very strange.
Very surprised. Oh, and he spins again. Yeah. Gotta be careful. Once you do spin, the rear tires heat up very, very easily, and at that point, hard to keep control of the car. And those tires are basically toast at this point. You really just, the only thing you can do with those tires is throw them away, because they've overheated so massively. Into the pit lane goes Gil, indeed, as expected. I mean, there's no point in staying out right now on these tires. Go in, get a new set, and try and get back out in time, which he should be able to do. The pit lane here very, very, very long. And yeah, I think it's one of the longest pit lanes on the calendar. You'll lose around 25 seconds here from a pit stop. I think Singapore is just as long. which is a bit surprising because Singapore doesn't, it's not as long, the pit lane, where, you slow down and then you have to go a long way to get to the first garage. But here around Silverstone, even though the whole pit lane is longer, because you're cutting out Vale and Club, you save some time, and so it does come down to ultimately around 25-26 seconds, same as in Singapore where it's 25 and a half.
It's one of those pit lanes where you can find yourself, certainly if you're expecting to be close to somebody on the pit exit, you're almost willing the car out the pit lane because it just takes so long, you get so impatient. It's very, very close, I have to say. It's the closest qualifying session I think we've had in this season. Just 0.3 of a second separating the top 9 drivers. And although in the majority you'd say most drivers you can sort of see where that pace has come from, if I had to say one driver who I'm a little bit surprised to see up where he is, that's Larkin, up in 3rd. I mean, we know Larkin's super consistent. He scored points at every race this season, but he hasn't had a podium yet. Oh, and Netsky just invalidates right when he was looking like on a superbly quick lap. But yeah, coming back to Larkin, 3rd place, I have to say, that's surprised me a little bit.
Yeah, it's certainly not what you would expect. However, there's still a lot of qualifying left, even though it's only 1 minute 15. But you got to remember, that's a minute 15 for all the drivers to start, as Louis invalidated, and Louis only has one more chance to set a lap time, so he needs to save VRS now. Oh, this is going to be really interesting now. My goodness. Can Louis actually set a lap time, or will he start from the very bottom in P13?
Oh, and Samster, who was on what's going to be his final lap, he isn't going to go any quicker than a 29.4, which is not representative in the slightest, because he has spun it and he will not have time to do another lap. So that's his qualifying session over. We've got Lakitu, who's on a lap, and he is about a 1/10 of a second up on what he's done previously. So if Lakitu can keep this going through this last sequence of corners, he could be about to be the first man into the 1 minute 20 breeze. Oh no, it's all gone. He had a massive snap of oversteer on the exit of Stowe, and that has ruined his lap as Raikkonen pops it into 5th.
Yeah, meanwhile Louis has started his final lap. I'm on board with him right now to see how this is going. Right now, obviously, first 2 corners, so far so good. Turn 3, taking it well. Turn 4, needs to be patient here, and he is. Oh, gotta watch out there. There was a car on the inside that was slowing down. That was on his in-lap, and so Louis had to be really careful there, but was able to avoid any sort of issue. Now coming through Brooklands and Luffield here. Patient. 5th gear. Really reducing the wheel spin. That's something that we will see from a lot of drivers, sort of 4th gear, 5th gear, out of Luffield. Massive short shifting there, really. And Louis makes sure he stays within the white lines on the exit of Cops. So now through Maggotts, Beckers, Shepard, really maximizing track limits. They're very important. And out down the Hanger straight, 1 minute 0.7 after 2 sectors. If we had Taz, which unfortunately is not working, our telemetry, we could tell you where he might end up, but right now we're going to have to wait until the last couple of quarters. He had a slight lock-up there. Oh, really played with the track limits there. That was really close. Coming through the final quarter, 23.6. What a lap that was.
That's incredible from Louis right at the end when all the pressure was on him. He delivers an absolute storming lap. Gilvo trying to respond. He goes second on a 23.8. Not quite enough to take. Oh, what's Larkin got? He goes third. And then crashes into Lakitu.
And that is the qualifying session over. That was after the line, so Larkin was not in control of his own car when he crashed into Lakitu. Lakitu must have spun over the line, and then his car was just parked there, and Larkin's AI just couldn't avoid him at that point because the human driver Larkin didn't care, I think, about this car that was behind the line, and so really weird scenes, but at the same time, you know, it's P3 for Larkin, which I think is his best qualifying result so far this season.
That's absolutely stunning effort from Larkin, I have to say. To be Just 0.3 of a second off pole position from Louis, which was incredible lap, by the way. That's a sensational effort from Larkin, and we know just how consistent he is. So if he can produce that sort of pace in a race, he's definitely one to look out for. But I have to say, Louis kept us waiting there, but right at the end, he delivered the pole position lap of a champion. Stunning stuff.
Yeah, I gotta say, 2.5 tenths ahead of Gil. Louis finally unlocking. Oh, as Dan has left the session. Let's hope he can rejoin in time. Oh, yeah, we'll be nosy in P11 in sort of the best spot for the alternate strategy. But remember, One Hub Racing, we have the mandatory 2-stop rule. And Nosy left as well. What is going on now? Why are more and more drivers leaving the session?
Lakitu just said in the chat we're restarting.
Oh, okay. That explains it
because of the grid penalties.
I see. Okay, yeah, that makes sense then.
So we'll quickly...
Who did get grid penalties? Because I don't see any here.
From the practice session, Samster got one, I believe.
Samster, and he collided with someone else, but yeah. That's going to be that then. So...
We'll back out.
Yeah, we're going to back out. And I would assume that Samster is the one creating the new lobby then?
Hopefully. Should assume so, since there's any reason why not. But yeah, I say, some great efforts there in qualifying, and super close, really, it has to be said. And Louis and Gil, who have been, I would say, the two fastest drivers in this tier this season, taking the front row grid slots. And yeah, we're going to have a 26-lap race ahead of us. What do you see happening in regards to strategy just while we wait to be in the new lobby?
I mean, it's going to be interesting because in terms of tyre wear, this is a track where it's an easy soft to medium one-stop if they... You kind of want to stay away from the softs because you can't keep them cool. They overheat, they will always overheat, and there's really not much you can do about it. So the question is really going to be, are they willing to suffer through the soft tire, or are they more inclined to go with the mediums, which are half a second slower per lap, but at the same time they are not at risk of overheating as much. They barely ever overheat. Like, there's maybe some issues once you make it out of Chapel. You might have them at 105 degrees, which is sort of that's the top point. You don't want to get higher than 105 degrees Celsius. The softs easily go up to 106, 107, maybe 108 on the carcass, which hard to control, hard to get back down. And it's going to be interesting to see what the strategy will be. The hards, I think, will not be touched at all. Even if someone does have an issue on lap 1, they'll probably go medium for the last 2 stints, or even softer medium if they are starting on the medium. So we won't see much of the hard compound tire in this race. The medium, however, might feature quite prominently because, as I say, it is a tire that does not overheat, and with only 0.5 of a second between soft and medium, it is certainly a viable option.
I saw a couple of drivers in the prospect tier go for hard tyres during certain points, but it didn't really work out too well for them. I think ultimately it's not a race tyre you want to be on. The medium is probably the best race tyre to have. Have you got an invite?
I have not, no.
Okay, it's just I don't want to keep checking because obviously when I do check it cuts your voice out.
I'll tell you.
No worries. In terms, briefly then talk about another thing then, because we got I was having a look at the Constructors' Championship really to see if there's any sort of surprises, if you will. And for me, one thing that caught my eye was McLaren down in 8th. Now Glock and Slash in the build-up to this race have said that this track is one of their favourites. But Glock and Slash, two drivers we know, are very, very quick. Does it surprise you somewhat that the struggles they've had this season?
I gotta say, it does surprise me to an extent, but if I look at their seasons, obviously they had a lot of struggles early on, especially, where it took them until round 3 to score their first point with a 7th place from Glock, and the consistency then sort of started to kick in, but in a shorter season of 10 races, and by the way, I have an invite now, so you should have one too. Season of 10 races originally, and now shortened further to 8, having that sort of run-up where it takes you a couple races to get into the points for the first time, it just kills you. You can be as consistent as you like from that point onwards. You can get sort of 5th, 6th, 7th all the time, which Glock has been 6th, 7th, 9th, and 9th, and Slash has been 7th, 8th, and 8th in the last 4 or 3 races, respectively, that they've finished. It's incredibly consistent, but it just doesn't help them that early on in the season they finished 16th, 11th, 12th, 15th, 3 DNFs as well. In such a short season, every single point matters and every single race matters just that much more.
Very true, and for me, I hope going forward they can have a better time with things next season, of course, if they are still here, which we do definitely hope they are. Another driver as well who spoke pre-race was Netski, obviously a relative newcomer to the league. I've mentioned already he has a lot of support in the stream anyway, and he's had a very, very promising start to his one-hub career. He was actually asked, are you looking forward to the season being over after next week, or will you miss racing? And he said the season's been like a practice for me as I join late, and I can't wait for the next season to begin. Obviously looking ahead for next season, we've no idea, of course, who's going to be in what tier, who's going to be still here, who will be new and everything. But if Netski is still here, I have to say he's definitely someone who I think could be a considerable threat in the top tier.
Certainly, yeah. He's really made an impression early on. That 6th place in Canada 2 weeks ago was a very, very cool, calm, and collected drive. Didn't really make many mistakes there, and just brought it home. So he's got the consistency, he's got the nerves, he's got the pace. He's really got everything that you need to succeed here in One Hub. The only thing that might hurt him is maybe that there are some drivers who are faster, but he's got good pace. And I think pace is the one thing in racing that you can always work on. You can always find more pace. Consistency is something that is so much harder to learn and so much harder to practice, and stuff like racecraft is even harder to practice because you can't really practice it at all. You gain it from more races. You don't gain it from just driving on your own around the track over and over and over again. You only gain racecraft by driving with other drivers. And so for Netski to have good racecraft at this point already is a huge bonus. He's got good pace, can certainly build on that maybe a little more, and then he's going to be a very, very viable threat to the top spots in the top tier next season.
No doubt about it. I'm very much looking forward to seeing how he develops over his One Hub career, and he's hoping for today's race that he could finish the season on the podium. Definitely not without the realms of possibility. Times are very close in qualifying. I believe Netski was around 6th or 7th, if memory serves me correctly, so it's definitely not in too bad of a position, and we've seen already that he can produce some good races, so it would be nice to see him have a good end to the season, and of course going forward to next season it's going to be good for him as well. And he could also help Red Bull secure second in the Constructors tonight. I think it's going to be very difficult to overhaul that 42 point gap to Williams. I think they have done enough overall. And I know I can curse it sometimes, but it would take quite something for me to curse that.
Yeah.
Come back to me in 26 laps when Red Bull win it.
It would take a 1-2. So Haas is already out of it because they don't even have 2 drivers here tonight.
Yep.
As mentioned before, Zach is at Spa for the French F4. So, he's not available tonight. Unfortunate for Haas, but that's the way it is. and Lakitu alone can't get 42 points. 26 is the maximum. With 2 drivers, you can get 44. So, if they do get a Red Bull 1-2, which I think for Gil to get the win is certainly possible, for Netsky to get second, it's going to be difficult. And so, it would also take a retirement from Louis at this point, really. And I don't think that Louis is going to go full beans into this race and you know, making a mistake or you know, getting hit to a point where he has to retire. I'd be very surprised, as he obviously starts from pole position, and they take the formation lap. 26 laps. Quick info about this track: 5.9 kilometers long, 3.66 miles, 18 corners, 8 to the left, 10 to the right. One of the many clockwise circuits on the calendar. The lap record he has set this year earlier by Max Verstappen with a 1 minute 27.0. Expect the drivers in the race here to be a little bit quicker because they are on a 2-stop, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see some drivers on softs near the end, at which point they can definitely be faster than 1 minute 27.0. This track has held 54 F1 Grand Prix. Or 54 British Grand Prix, because it also held one 70th anniversary Grand Prix, so really 55, but, you know, that's all because of COVID. But 54 British Grand Prix held around the Silverstone circuit, and as mentioned before, the tyres, 5/10 between the soft and the medium, and another 5/10 of a second between the mediums and the hards. Tyres last long enough easily. The softs go half the race distance, so if they were allowed, they could try a soft-to-soft one-stop, especially now that everyone has new tyres. So that because we had a lobby restart, their tyres are not the old tyres from qualifying anymore. They have a new set of soft tyres. So they could try and go soft-to-soft one-stop if they were allowed, but F1 rules say no, and our one-up rules definitely say no, because you need to pit twice.
Yeah, and it could potentially reduce some of the advantage that maybe going outside the top 10 would have at certain races. Obviously, now that everyone will be starting on fresh tyres, the only person who is not starting on the soft tyres is Cliffy, who has opted to start on medium, so we'll see how that plays out for him. But everybody else opting for the softs for this opening stint of the race, and it will be Louis and Gil on the front row, Larkin and Chapelele on row 2, as the final few cars line up on the grid and we get ready for the lights to begin to illuminate in front of us. 14 drivers on the grid. Louis' farewell race. It's going to be a dramatic one for sure. As I try and find a good... There you go. Here we go. The lights illuminate now in front of us. And when they go out, let battle commence here at Silverstone. Looks like a very good start from Louis. Already Gil having to go across to cover off Larkin, it seems. As Larkin goes right round the outside. Is he going to make the move down into turn 3? Goes around the outside of a Red Bull driver. Larkin really aggressive on the start and moves up into second place. Great move there from him, as we've got Lakitu and Chapelele going side by side further down the order, and Netsky as well moved up a place past Raikkonen. But Louis has got the ideal start, and Larkin, fresh from his excellent pace in qualifying, is already doing a great job up to second place. As we further down, we've got Netsky. And, oh, in fact, Lakitu's lost a couple of places. I don't know if he ran wide there, but Lakitu drops in behind Raikkonen, and Netsky's now right behind him as well. Is he going to try and move into Cops? We shall see Netsky round the outside of Lakitu. This is going to be brave stuff on the opening lap, and they both run slightly wide. Netsky trying to look for a gap, but just simply is not there right now. And Lakitu holds on to 6th place with Netsky and Glock and Slash slotting in behind, and that was very nearly a massive crash there.
Yeah, it does make Netsky a little bit optimistic there, trying to stay in there. Ultimately, he did pull out of that move and decided to accept his fate of 7th place right now. Netsky also flirting with the track limits, very much so, to a point where I think he may already have 2 warnings. No, he doesn't even have a single warning.
2 McLarens going side by side through the last complex of corners. That's sensational stuff there. And it looks like it's Glock that has kept a position in front of Slash, but it went side by side there. through club and village, and that was absolutely sensational stuff from the two McLaren drivers. I was worried they were going to make contact for a second there, but great respect between the pair of them. And for Louis, this is probably ideal. He would not have minded that Larkin got Gil at the start.
Yeah, for him, it's really a very good situation that there is at least one driver between himself and Gil, who is arguably the most on pace with Louis. So to have someone in between as a sort of buffer certainly helps, and it keeps Gil away. And what we see so often on F1, on generally the F1 games, and to some extent in real F1, even though they have obviously vastly varying car performances, which we don't have here. All cars are equal performance. You get these DRS trains where the second driver in the train can overtake the first, but apart from that, there's not much movement. So third driver in the train, fourth driver in the train, fifth, sixth, and so on, all the way to the last one. There's generally not going to be much movement unless someone makes a significant mistake, which, looking at the guys up front, Louis, Larkin, Gil, Chapelele, Raikkonen, Lakitu, Netsky, I don't see any of them making significant mistakes.
No, absolutely not. And Louis already got out of the DRS zone of Larkin, which is absolutely crucial for him, and potentially a problem for Larkin too, with Gil pretty close behind him. Once again, the McLaren's getting super close. We've already had Knowlesy into the pits, so I can only assume that's for damage. I didn't catch it, unfortunately, but Knowlesy right to the back now, and it's going to be a tough race from there. He could do with a safety car for sure later on in the race.
Yeah, and it was for damage. He did have a front wing change.
So not the start that Knowlesy would have wanted there, as he looks to score points on the final race of the season. We've got Gil now very close behind the back of Larkin. Is he going to be close enough to make a move down the hangar straight? He's got the DRS open, he's got overtake mode enabled. He's going to close up to the back of the AlphaTauri. Don't worry, there are going to be no team orders here between AlphaTauri and Red Bull. This is going to be a fair fight, and I don't think Larkin will want to give this up at all. He probably, I don't know if he'll be surprised at where he is, but he'll certainly be very happy with where he is, and he won't want to give it up without a fight. And if anything, he's keeping tabs with Louis as well, so he's not given up on Louis just yet either. He wants to try and see if he can close down the race leader, and I have to say, Larkin, we've always praised him for his consistency, but tonight he's got raw pace, there's no doubt about it.
Certainly, and for Larkin, I mean, this would be huge. He hasn't had a single podium in One Hub so far, so if he can get this tonight, he would celebrate his first podium in his One Hub career. And I mean, what better race to do than the last Pinnacle tier race of season 16?
The last Pinnacle tier race, and his home Grand Prix to boot as well, so would be a perfect combination for Larkin. And right now he's looking in a strong position, but there is quite a train of cars behind him that are keeping tabs. You've got Chapelele still up in fourth. You've got Raikkonen, Lakitu, Netsky, Glock, who has already collected his second penalty. I've just noticed that, and that's a worrying thing to see at this early stage of the race. You do not want to have 6 seconds worth of penalties by lap 4.
And here comes Gil now on Larkin, down the inside. Larkin doesn't really defend it too much. Gil gets the position before the apex, and Larkin runs wide a little bit there as well. Got to be careful there. The track limits around Stowe, they're not the same as they were last year, and he did get a warning for that.
We've got some early pit stops now. Chapelele and Glock already in the pits at quite an early stage, it has to be said.
Oh, Sam's off. Sam has spun.
We've got Samster. Oh, and he's spun coming out the final corner, it looks like. Yeah. And that's dropped him right to the rear of the field.
He ran wide into the gravel trap and then just started spinning, trying to get back on track, and lost control of the car.
It's a real shame for Samster. He showed some excellent form recently, podiums at the last 2 races, and he really has been looking on the up, but qualifying didn't go well for him, and the race isn't particularly going to plan either at this moment in time. So it doesn't look like he's got damage, but he's definitely lost a lot of time. And it'll be interesting to see. Chapelele has gone back out on soft tyres, Whereas Glock has gone for mediums. What do you make of Chapelele's call to go on to softs? Obviously, that kind of restricts him in what he can do later on.
It does, but at the same time, if he feels like it's a good shout, then why not? It's an undercut, and at this point he gets a lot of free air. He gets a lot of free running. No issues with any cars in front that may slow him down. And so it might be helpful on this fresh set of softs. This massive undercut might actually work. As now, Louis Larkin and Raikkonen and Slash all come in as well, sort of responding to that undercut from Chapelele, I think. So we have a change for the lead. Gil now in P1, Lakita in P2, the two drivers who are battling it out over second place in the driver's standings, and Netsky then in P3. It's going to be interesting to see where they come out. They don't restrict themselves to that medium stint as the final stint. They go on to mediums right now, leaving their options open. However, at the same time, for Chapelele, it's not that bad, considering as he actually overtakes Larkin. So the undercut works absolutely a treat. So for Chapelele, the issue isn't that, you know, he's restricted to mediums. The issue would arise if he does pit a second time rather shortly, meaning probably about lap 11, 12 maybe even 10. And then there's a safety car around lap 13, 14, 15. Then he's in trouble, because then he might, 13, 14, 15. Because then he's in trouble, because he would have to pit probably for softs. Everyone else gets a free pit stop, and he's at the very back of the field. So I don't know about this one. He takes options away in case there's a safety car. In any other situation, if there's no safety car, however, he just gave himself the best opportunity here.
I'm very interested to see now, because Gil and Lakitu and Konzo all pit now as well. Netsky kind of had to continue in the end, because obviously he couldn't stack behind his teammate. So Netsky's had to stay out for another lap, and he may potentially fall down a few places as a result of that. Gil rejoins just in front of Lakitu at the pits. It's going to be interesting to see where Louis, Chapelele and Larkin are in reaction to that. We've got Raikkonen out of the race. Is that in the pit lane?
Yeah, that's in the pit lane.
Okay, so there won't be any safety car because of that. And Larkin comes out just behind Gil, and Chapelele has jumped the pair of them.
Yeah, so, and they're side by side as well now. And still side by side, Larkin and Gil. Now Larkin has to concede here, as they both have DRS down the Wellington straight. So no chance really for Larkin to get that position back. But this has been absolute horror for Larkin, and it worked very, very well for Chapelele. That one lap undercut on Larkin, 2 laps on Gil, and he's now up into net second place.
And Louis got a buffer once again out front, so it's worked out very nice of him, as Larkin gets a much better exit out of Cops than Gil did, but he just doesn't have anywhere to go with it before we get to the Maggots-Beckett's complex. And as Gil picks up a penalty there as he tries to fend off the AlphaTauri behind him, Larkin senses an opportunity. He's not using overtake down the hangar straight, which is slightly surprising, because this seemed like a pretty decent opportunity, but he thinks better of it on this occasion and slots in behind the Red Bull driver. Netsky is into the pits, and where's he going to rejoin in amongst all this? I reckon it's going to be behind Lakitu, is where he was before, so his aim really is to make sure he stays out in front of the 2 McLarens, I would suggest. There's a decent enough buffer for that to happen. It depends, of course, how good his pace has been on that last lap he did. Netsky comes out the pits, and as I sort of expected, he slots in just behind Lakitu. And actually, for Netsky, that's not worked out too badly, really. He's where he was before, and he ran a little bit longer that first stint.
Samster's still spinning again out of the final corner. Second time now. He's really struggling there. I don't know what it is. I'm going to stay on board with... Oh, he's got front wing damage, I think, because he really did not make that corner. I can't see it right now, thanks to the camera setting that Codemasters gives me, which is on the car on the right side, sort of on the side pod. I would really like to see what's going on there, but okay, it's not working. Oh, there we go. Oh yeah, that front wing is Yeah, the base plate is still there. That's about it. And
Yeah,
even that is damaged.
It's going to require a pit stop. It's been a bit of a disaster for Samster tonight. Very unexpected. We saw how good he's been of late, and that's just not what you would have expected from him. But that last corner caused him some problems, and it looks like it's going to be a difficult day for the Mercedes team. Samster, of course, is the only Mercedes driver here tonight, so you know, it's just up to him to score the points, and it's looking unlikely that's going to happen. Dan Murphy now pits as well. Cliffy is the technical race leader right now, but of course he started on the medium tyres, so he's running an alternative strategy to those around him. So Louis is your technical race leader right now, with Chapelele in second, Gil third, Larkin fourth, and Lakitu in fifth. And it's an interesting little training cars we've got here, and Chapelele on the soft tyres is looking pretty good at this stage of the race, it has to be said. And you know, mentioned obviously his consistency has potentially sometimes been his issue, but he stayed out of trouble in the opening few laps here, and he seems to be reaping the rewards as this race develops.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see whether Chapelele's strategy affects the other driver's strategy. Because Chapelele went from soft to softs now, meaning he only has one stint on the mediums left to the end. And the mediums go 19 laps, so if he were to pit right now, it would be 17 laps, and that would be that, as Samster retires in the pit lane. So 17 laps, he could easily do that on the mediums right now if he wanted to. But at the same time, what do the other drivers on the mediums do if Chapelele undercuts them again? Do they follow him in and get off their medium tires very quickly? Or do they try and go onto softs near the end and try and really make use of the soft compound tire with a low tank of fuel, with a lowly filled tank of fuel? Because the way the game works in 2020, the way F1 2020 works, is that you have really a bigger margin between the tires when the fuel tank is near empty. Early on in the race, it's about half a second. Late in the race, it's more like 7-8 tenths. So the soft tires work so much better with a low tank of fuel, whereas the mediums and the hards are a very good tire to start the race on. Which is why the alternate strategy in leagues, especially in leagues where there is no mandatory two-stop, just works that much better.
Yeah, absolutely. And for Chapelele, he could potentially, as a result, be under pressure late on should some of the drivers behind him switch to softs at the end, which is very possible, as Cliffy makes his first of two pit stops. He had a 16.8 second lead over Louis. In terms of where he was before and where he's probably likely to come out, you're probably looking at as a gap between Glock and Konzo, which I reckon he could slot into. So his race, I wouldn't say is going too badly at the moment. Cliffy could be looking for some pretty decent points here, depending what his pace is like on the soft tyre, which he's now switched to. So Cliffy not in too bad of a shape there, running the alternate strategy pretty well. And right now we've got Lakitu over the back of Larkin. Larkin's early race pace, I won't say fading, but he's maybe slightly struggling to keep tabs now with some of the drivers in front of him and falling into the clutches of those behind.
Yeah, but he still got DRS off of Gil, at least for now. So that keeps him in this to some extent. But yeah, he seems to be struggling a little bit on these medium tires. And sometimes that can be the difference between the good and the great. Where you have sort of on the soft tire in qualifying, they're all on similar pace. But once it gets to the medium compound tire, which does handle a bit differently, some drivers can minimize the time loss to about half a second. For others, it's more like 7 or 8 tenths. And maybe that's the case here with Larkin right now. He really is struggling. He does get the DRS again off of Gil, but only just. This DRS train is really... I mean, this is about as close as it gets. They're all about a second away from each other, but just under a second. And it's interesting to see who's going to be the first one to fall out of that 1 second window.
No, that's very true. And Chapelele is looking potentially like he wants to get in the DRS zone of Louis in front now. He's closed the gap down to 1.1 seconds. And if he can get DRS himself, that'll be a massive help. But at the same time, Gil is fighting to keep hold of DRS from Chapelele in front of him. So it's very, very close here, and it's absolutely crucial for Larkin especially, I fear, that he keeps hold of that DRS, because that is really helping him against Lakitu. And Netsky as well, for that matter, behind him. As expected, Cliffy has rejoined in P9, and could potentially start to close in the two McLarens, who are kind of in a race of their own. They were on the back of this group earlier on in the race, but they just don't seem to have that pace to sustain that fight with these guys in front of them.
Yeah, and right now they're under pressure from Cliffy and Konza, who are both on the softs while they are on the mediums. So for Slash and Glock, they have to just play the long game at this point. They have to hope that the race comes towards them near the end and maybe make the right strategy call. And I gotta be honest with you, I don't know what the right strategy call is right now. That's it could be going on to another set of mediums.
It goes Lakitu down the inside of Larkin, and down the inside, just notice contact! You can see he's got a hand in the air, and Larkin keeps hold of a place, but it wasn't without contact between the pair of them as Lakitu looked to make the position up. Gil lost the DRS to Gil in front of him, and with a lot more ERS available to him, Lakitu had a really good chance there. And that contact between the pair has really sort of drifted them apart from the group in front, and now Larkin's under more threat than ever. And surely, just looking at it, I just feel like Lakitu and Netsky just have a little bit more pace at this time.
Yeah, regarding that incident...
Oh, Lakitu's gone! He spins under traction in his eagerness to get on the throttle as quickly as possible. He makes a mistake, a rare mistake, it has to be said, from the Haas driver. And he drops down behind... Is he going to drop behind Cliffy? It's going to be all mightily close. But no, he just stays out in front of Cliffy. But he'll have to try and get those tyres working again after that spin.
He'll pit.
So that's going to mean... I mean, that probably restricts him. Well, he's mentioned the softs could do 13 laps, so... Will he risk the softs, or do you reckon he'll go for another set of mediums?
Good question. Oh, this could go either way. If I was Lakitu, I don't know what I would do, honestly. I'd probably play it a bit safer and try and go for... Or maybe he can actually get these tires back into a working range. He's had, like, at least half a lap, I would say 3/4 of a lap, really, to get the tires back into a working range.
Cliffy finds his way past Lakitu down the inside, and what's Lakitu going to do?
He's going to stay out.
He's going to stay out, so... He's sticking with it for now.
He must have gotten some temperature out of the rear tires at that point. Konzo does pit, however, so he'll fall down behind Knowlesy at this point. But yeah, for Lakitu, that mistake, very, very uncharacteristic for him. Just lost it on the traction. Just too much wheel spin on the exit of the corner of turn 4, and that was it. That sent him. Very uncharacteristic, very unusual for him. But it lost him so many positions, and now it's a battle over 4th place between Larkin and Netsky, pretty much exclusively.
Absolutely. Do you think perhaps he saw that the likes of Chapelele and Gil were getting further up the road, and in his eagerness to clear Larkin, he just made that error? You know, he just maybe thought mentally, I need to get this move done now, and it sort of pressurized him into a mistake we don't see from him.
It could be. There's two explanations for that sort of a mistake. Either it's a lack of concentration, as here goes Netsky on Larkin round the outside. There should be an easy overtake, and indeed it is. One car with DRS, the other without. Netsky easily taking that position off of Larkin. But I don't think we've seen the last of those two. Oh, never mind. We have. Larkin goes into the pit lane. Undercut on Netsky, and... he's not the only one. Chapelele has had enough of his soft tires. He has to go onto mediums now. What does Larkin do? Softs or mediums? That's the question. He's got 11 laps to go. Sorry, 12 laps to go. Very interesting as he gets slowed down actually by Chapelele, and he goes on to mediums as well. Slash goes on to softs, however. Interesting that. So this could really decide the race, because the drivers who are now on new mediums, they will have a lot of pace near the end still. near the end of the race. The ones who go on softs, maybe next lap or even the lap after, they will slightly struggle on pace. Even though, as I say, the softs last 13, but the tire temperature going higher means the lifespan of the soft tire is reduced. The 13 laps only really count if you can keep those tires in check. Meaning, because they overheat so easily, it's probably more like 11 laps that they lost. So for Larkin, the mediums here, I think maybe the right call. For Slash, it's risky. But we'll see how this goes, and we'll see who will be the next one to the pits. Louis stays out. Gil with the undercut. Now he wants to get closer to Louis, and I think that's a really good call there. Netsky has to stay out. His teammate just came in, so not really much of a point in coming in. Glock staying out, Cliffy staying out, obviously, and Lakitu staying out as well. Dan Murphy. So really Gil the only one coming in as he goes for softs. Risky, but could pay off.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting for Gil. I think he's probably looking at it as, you know, I've got nothing to lose. He'll know that Lakitu's had some problems, potentially, and second place in the championship is kind of his for the taking now. So he's taking a bit of a gamble. He's going to rejoin, or he should rejoin behind Chapelele, and he does. But what's going to be interesting now is where Louis is going to rejoin, and I assume in a lap's time. I can't imagine he'll leave it that much longer before pitting, but he potentially might not rejoin in the lead here. There's every chance that Chapelele could jump him here, and maybe Gil too.
Yeah, however, right now it seems like, I mean, if you look at the gaps between Louis and Chapelele, it's 29 seconds. As I said before, you lose around 25.5 in the pit lane, maybe 26. So right now it's looking good. If Louis pits now, he should still be in the net lead.
It's going to be interesting to see how it develops. And of course, Gil now on the soft tyres might start to come back at Chapelele as well. So that's going to be something to watch out for. As Cliffy looks like he's making a move on Glock. Yes, he is, and then he pits. So, very short-lived move as Netsky. Oh, and he also gets a penalty for speeding in the pit lane. That's disastrous for Cliffy. He really didn't need that, as his race was really starting to come alive, I would have said at that point. Netsky also pits, and he goes onto the soft tyres as well, so he could be a threat late on this race as well. It's interesting to see the different strategies here. And you'd imagine as well that Louis will go on to softs next time around.
Yeah, at this point the softs really are the better tyre to go on in the pits. So you see then Netsky on softs, Cliffy on softs, Knowlesy will go on softs, I would assume. So this should really be a simple choice, and indeed he does. This should be a simple choice for all the drivers who haven't pitted yet at this point. Meaning Louis, Glock, Lakitu, and Dan Murphy go on to the softs, go to the end, and that will be that. However, still looking at the gap, 28.7 between Louis and Chapelele, so Louis should be around 2 seconds ahead. However, one thing to note is that the pit loss might actually be a bit higher because the pit exit, you know, you're a bit slower there than the car on track. So Louis now, this could get really close. 28.9. He had a really good middle sector, as it seems, compared to Chapelele. What
might help him here is that Gil is about to overtake Chapelele, and they're going to be fighting up to Stowe. Is he going to be able to make the move stick? Yes, he is. So that's probably not what Louis would have hoped to have fought for about a little bit more. But Gil makes the overtake, and I have to say, on those soft tyres, I suspect we're about to see a fastest lap come storming in, because Gil is absolutely flying.
And there it is, as you mentioned it. And here comes Louis out of the pit lane. Where is Gil?
Just right behind. He could have an opportunity here, as Louis tries to get into the rhythm here, and he's going to be an opportunity for Gil down the hanger straight. Not the hanger straight, sorry, wrong straight. Wellington straight. And Gil, is he going to be close enough on this occasion? He's not using his overtake. He's saving it for now. Far away. So just too far away. Exit.
He didn't get a good exit out of turn 4, and so he decided to.
Got Lakitu making a very audacious move into cops on Glock, and Glock almost scared out of it, I think, and got a penalty in doing so. And I have to say, Glock, wherever he does finish the race, might be a lot lower than where he crosses the line, because he seems to have a lot of penalties. In fact, he's weaving now, so I don't I'm not entirely sure. Maybe to try and get temperature back in his tyres, but to be fair, Lakitu and Glock are getting to that sort of stage where they should be pitting anyway.
Yeah,
and in fact, Glock does. Yeah,
but I don't think the weaving was to get temperature into the tyres. I think it was to express displeasure with what unfolded in COPs between the two drivers. I think that's the weaving can mean a lot of things. I think in this case it was that.
Yeah, there's no button that you can manually control to get your driver's hand to wave out of the car. Yeah. It can instinctively do it sometimes.
Yeah, and you can't flash lights either because those cars don't have lights. So that's usually, and they don't have a horn either. So the typical, normal driver, not race driver, just driver in the street, the normal signals to voice your displeasure, hand signs, horn, and lights, they all don't exist on this car, or at least there's no button to trigger them manually, so all you really have is sort of weaving, that's really the only thing you can do to voice any form of displeasure with another driver's conduct.
We've just got another overtake there. It was Cliffy at the end of a Wellington straight, moving past Slash and up into 6th place, and I have to say, running that alternative strategy, it's worked out pretty well, I have to say, for Cliffy, and he's looking at one of his probably best results of the season, alongside Monaco. Oh, and Larkin! Larkin is out of the race! He's crashed out, looks like through the Maggots and Beckett's complex.
Yeah.
Oh,
Beckett's.
I don't believe it. For someone who's had such a consistent season, tonight he was arguably showing more pace than ever, and it's the night where it's all gone wrong, and he's going to end his point-scoring streak here. Not the end to the season he wanted at all. We've got Netsky in the pits with a safety car coming out, but he's got a 5-second penalty, so that's kind of undone that strategy, I think, already.
Yeah, pretty much. The question is, are the drivers going to come in now? Is Chapelele going to come in? Because at this point, you have to think, he's on the mediums, everyone behind him will be on the softs, everyone in front of him is on the softs already, so he has a 12-second gap, sort of, but the safety car has already caught the leader, so this will all be undone. He only had one chance to make it into the pit lane, and he didn't react fast enough, and maybe he wasn't able to. So, really unfortunate for Chapelele. At this point, I don't think he is going to pit, because the other cars, Cliffy, Slash, Lakita, they're all going to catch up to the field all the way to Glock. Maybe even Dan Murphy and Netsky, and he would fall down to sort of P9 at the very least. I don't think it makes any sense for him to pit at this point. It's probably better to try and keep track position, especially considering once again that between the softs and the mediums the difference is only half a second.
Larkin just expressing his disappointment in the chat, absolutely devastated after that, and I can't say I blame him. This was a race where I think we've definitely seen the most outright pace from him, and it's gutting that it's ended like that for him, especially with that point scoring streak that he was on. But the interesting thing now, of course, is Gil. That lead that Louis had over Gil, which to be fair wasn't a lot anyway, has now been completely wiped out, and this is going to be a real test of Louis here. See if he can keep Gil behind him. And Cliffy now up to 4th on the alternative strategy, and with Chapelele being on mediums, like you say, Cliffy's staring at a potential podium here.
Yeah, potentially, yeah. That could very well happen. That could very well be the case. As for some reason, there's a lot of shuffling going on. Oh, Cliffy in the pit lane.
Oh, Cliffy pits.
Why?
Has he got damage? That's the only reason I could think that he would pit. I don't really...
I'm staying on him, I'll tell you. But it's very surprising that he would pit. He had such good track position. And now he pulls into the pit lane and he serves a 5-second penalty. Maybe that's why.
Yeah, maybe he's thinking he can get fresh tyres and serve a penalty.
No front wing change. Just served a 5-second penalty. So he got that penalty away at least. And he might actually still be ahead of Nosey. Oh, that's going to be close. No, he's behind.
So Cliffy's going to have to do some overtaking in his last stage as Konzo, who was on the medium tyres, has switched to the soft, so Chapelele is the odd one out here. He's decided ultimately that he'd just rather have the track position. And now all of a sudden it's Slash up in 4th place, so another potential driver who maybe wouldn't have been expecting a podium tonight, but is in with a good shout now. And it's shaping up to be a Louis and Gil showdown here, unless there's a massive surprise in store.
Well, I'm looking at the penalties right now. We have Louis on 3 seconds and 2 warnings, so he's 1 warning away from 6 seconds. Gil, well, the same thing goes for him. The same thing goes for him. Let me quickly check to make sure, because maybe he just has 1 warning. Slightly difficult to completely understand the way this the way this works, but yeah, no, Gil only on 1 warning actually. So 3 seconds plus 1 warning, so he can afford 1 more. Louis cannot. But both drivers. Chapelele, meanwhile, also on a penalty, but with no additional warnings, so he can afford 2 more. Slash, if he can stay with them, he's just got 1 warning. Slash might actually... Oh, sorry, he's got 2 warnings. Apologies. He's got 2 warnings. He might be on for a win if he can stay within 3 seconds of the leader.
This is going to be a dramatic finish to the race. Louis has decided now to bolt. He's going for it. I don't think he caught Gil napping as much as he would have hoped, but he has got a little bit of a lead out front. The thing is now, for Louis, he's got to try and go for this, but at the same time, he cannot afford another warning. So it's such a difficult situation here. He wants to go flat out, but he knows just one little mistake could really cost him here come the finish.
Yeah, certainly. And for Chapelele, it's going to be really
And
difficult.
Glock dives down the inside of Lakitu. That was absolutely certain there was going to be contact there, but he has to slot him behind in the end. It was a very audacious move. Something I've seen like F2 driver Guan Yu Zhou perfect here when we raced at Silverstone. Incredible attempt, but thankfully it was... No, he's trying to go for it again. Round the old final corner, and again it was a gap that it was ultimately going to close, but thankfully he stayed behind him in the end. But you can see already that on those medium tyres, Chapelele just cannot keep up with the top 2 as they start to pull clear. And well, you mentioned a chance for Slash, but he really needs to get past that Ferrari.
Yeah, he really does, yeah. And right now it doesn't look too good for him to get past that Ferrari. 7/10 of a gap, no DRS until lap 24. We're not even in lap 23 yet.
Stowe, he's going for it around the inside of Glock, who picks up yet another penalty. He's definitely not in contention for the win.
Oh no.
There's no doubt about that. And Netsky just couldn't quite make the overtake stick into Stowe. He had a look up the inside, but just wasn't quite close enough. And we're now on lap 23, and everyone is right there. Cliffy's already made his way past Knowlesy up into 10th place. And I'm going to go back on board with Slash to see if he can make what will be a crucial move on Chapelele, but he's not exactly all over the back of that Ferrari at the same time.
Yeah, he was waiting for the DRS, I think, but at that point it might be a bit too late. He needs to hope. If both Louis and Gil get another 3-second time penalty, Slash might be golden here, but he needs to hope that they do mess up. In any other case, he's not going to get that win, but he's still in a very good position here. 3.6 seconds, gets the slipstream at least off Chapelele. It's not much, but it is something, and it keeps him a little bit closer, but Chapelele is losing so much time. I don't know what's going on there, but he's losing a lot of time. Does he have any damage? Let me quickly try and see this. I don't think so, no. His front wing looks in pristine condition, so that can't be it. 3 laps left to go here in the final race of the season. We know Louis is the champion. That has already been decided. I think at this point it's safe to say that...
Oh, there's contact between him and Glock. He just had a look up the Abbey chicane, but it just wasn't good. Again, it was just a move that was ultimately only going to end in one way. But thankfully, I think he got away with that damage, and he slots in behind the McLaren driver again. But Glock is really the cork in the bottle for these drivers behind here, because I think to all intents and purposes, Glock's going to finish 11th here, because unless a driver goes wrong, he's just got so many penalties that's going to cost him. But right now, he's really costing drivers like Netsky and maybe Konzo and Cliffy too, of getting higher positions.
Yeah, I'm looking right now whether there is a driver with as many penalties as Glock, and no, not even close. 18 seconds at this point. So he's definitely going to fall down to last, most likely. But now the DRS is enabled. I think this is Slash's opportunity.
But if anything, he's coming under threat from Lakitu, who had a brief look into Cops, but thought better of it. But if anything, Lakitu's more close to Slash than he is to Chapelele, but Slash here might have an opportunity onto the hangar straight. Is he going to be close enough to the Ferrari? It doesn't look like he's that close, but he will, of course, close in now. He's not using overtake, so clearly doesn't think it's his best opportunity, and he stays slotted in behind for now. And now the key for Louis is he has to avoid that second penalty against Gill.
Yeah, I gotta say, looking at Slash's ERS deployment sort of system, if you will, he's not optimizing his ERS usage. He didn't use it when he came out of Chapel. He did use it when he came out of Stowe, which is a much shorter straight from Stowe to Vale. And then he used it when he came out of Vale and through Club, which does make sense, but still, it's not really helpful when you want to overtake. You want to save some and use it down the whole straight, and he's not really using it. Maybe one of the issues for Slash can be as well that maybe he's running a slightly higher downforce setup, at which point it is harder to regain ERS because you get higher cornering speeds, you get lower straight line speed, so your brake distance is shorter, and it's even shorter because your cornering speed is higher, so you don't have to brake as much, and so you don't regain as much ERS as you would on a low downforce setup. So maybe that hurts Slash right now.
Oh, he's going to be in the threat here from Lakitu, who's alongside him going into Stowe. He's going to go the inside, and Lakitu is going to take 4th place right on the penultimate lap. Slash was so focused on trying to get ahead of Chapelele, but ultimately he didn't have enough ERS available to him. And that's,
yeah, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter too much for Slash. He just needs to stay within 3 seconds of Chapelele now, and he would still get 3rd place. He would still get a podium because both Chapelele and Lakitu have at least 1 penalty. And he doesn't. Slash doesn't.
Very good point. And now he's got his teammate behind him, who of course we know has a lot of penalties, and Netsky, who I get the sense is getting a little bit frustrated behind that McLaren, and he's got another opportunity here. He's got a much better exit onto the Wellington straight. Glock senses that and goes defensive, and in the end he didn't really have to because that DRS kind of helped him stay in front of a Red Bull. Netsky keeps having a look into this corner, and I don't understand why, because it really affects his exit, and there's never really a way through there. So I ultimately think Netsky's kind of choosing the wrong place to have a look if he wants to make that move stick for P6.
Yeah, meanwhile, Louis did get another warning, but not another penalty, because one of the warnings he got after his first penalty was a warning for crossing the line, the pit line on exit, and obviously that's not going into corner cut warnings, and so he was allowed that one more warning. Now he's on 2. Apologies for that. I only see warning. It doesn't tell me what the warning's for unless I dig into it. But here comes Louis around the final corner to win his final race in One Hub. And Gill comes 2nd, Chapelele 3rd. Oh, Slash must have gotten a penalty later on.
Oh no, that means Slash doesn't get the podium, and it stays with Chapelele. So Chapelele ends the season with a podium. Fair play to him. We didn't think he'd maybe called that wrong with him going on to mediums for the last, or staying on mediums under the safety car, but he held that position, so fair play to him, and well-deserved podium to boot.
Yeah, his 2nd podium for Chapelele in his One Hub career. He was a driver in season 14 in that top tier at the time called the Prestige tier, and he did get 1 podium there back in the day. But gets his 2nd now, and BDG Louis sending himself off with the top spot on the podium. What a career for Louis at the end of it all. 26 wins 41 podiums, and just an amazing one-hub career. He finishes on 30 pole positions as well. Gets the fastest lap, so 11 fastest laps, 892 points. He's 8 points short of 900. 3 Drivers' Championships, 3 Constructors' Championships. That, by the way, is something that no one else can match. There are a couple drivers with 2 Constructors' Championships. Cliffy will also be on 3 now. So, at least that. But my God, what a career for Louis. And at this point, I'm sorry I'm taking that away from you, but I'm picking Louis as the driver of the day. And if he does want to ask that, he does want to answer that question, which I'm not sure he will, because he never answers questions in the forums. But if he wants to, I would like to know from Louis, what did that last race feel like, knowing that it's the farewell? What did he think about the lap of honor in practice?
Very nice question. I can't argue with that. I actually wasn't going to go with Louis, so you did actually take that from me. So I was actually going to go. My vote goes to Chapelele, and my question to him is going to be, what was his thinking behind sticking it out on the medium tyre when the safety car came out? Was he not worried about those around him on fresh soft tyres?
All right, fair enough.
Yeah,
so that brings an end to the Pinnacle tier season. Louis gets first, barring any post-race penalties. Gil gets second in the Drivers' Championship. Lakitu third. Then we have Samster fourth. Let me see, just to make sure. Yeah, I don't think too much changed here at the end. Let me try and find the results. There we go. Chapelele moves up quite a few positions. But ultimately, it was Lakitu fourth. Yeah, okay, so he remains. Slash moves up a couple positions. He gets ahead of... Oh, he's tied now with Cliffy, actually. They're tied at 25. But Cliffy had 2 5th places. However, yeah, Slash only had this 5th place, so Cliffy keeps that. Oh no, Cliffy had a 3rd. Apologies, Cliffy had a 3rd of Monaco. So Cliffy keeps that position either way. So that's going to be interesting as well. A couple of things there to unravel for the statisticians of OneHub. But my goodness, what a season it was, and what a send-off it was. And I think the last thing for me to say is that, at least for the foreseeable future, this was also my last race in OneHub on the microphone. I will not be returning for season 17, so I think it's my time now to get a little bit emotional. I will not leave OneHub completely. I will still be behind the scenes and try and help with stats and the insights, etc. But all I can say really is big thank you to everyone in management. Big thank you to Jess as the head of broadcasting in particular. Big thank you to Nick, who sort of brought me on and got me more involved. Big thank you to all my commentator colleagues that I had the pleasure of working with here in OneHub over the seasons, whether it was Kieran, whether it was Luke, whether it was Owen, or whether it was Jake. Thank you so much, guys, for the memorable moments. And thank you, of course, to all the drivers for the amazing battles that I got to witness in the last couple of seasons, and as well a thank you to all the viewers.
I think you may have read what I was about to read as well, because I was actually going to say as well. Yeah, just want to say a massive thank you to you as well. Obviously, you've just said what I was going to say. Obviously, you are leaving the commentary team after tonight's race, but you are still part of the management at OneHub. You've done an absolutely incredible job in commentary, and you will be missed next season. And speaking personally, you've helped me out so much over the weeks, helped me improve my commentary. So yeah, I think from all of us at OneHub, we thank you and wish you the very best in the future.
I can't speak much. I'm actually a bit tearing up.
I'll take over. Then. Massive thank you to especially to yourself and Louis, two One Hub legends who we are going to miss next season, and you know it's going to be a new chapter, I guess. Almost it's going to feel like next season, and hopefully you guys will all stick with us, and it's going to be hopefully another fantastic season. And I don't think we could have ended it on a better note. Have you got any final thoughts before I wrap it up, Austin?
I think I've expressed them all.
No worries at all. So yeah, massive thank you to everyone who's tuned in, everyone who's liked the stream, commented, and just been really supportive throughout. And we will see you. Of course, don't forget to check out the finale to the Prospect, Podium, and Precision tiers. They'll be next week at Hanoi. But for myself and Austin and all the Pinnacle tier, it's good night from all of us, and we will catch you on the flip side.